Hello there, Meoni here, and this is a showcase video looking at the relic weapons at their current finished state, or at least this finished phase as of patch 7.25. There'll be further stages in the future, starting with the 7.3 series in August. I thought it would be cool to make something at the start of this. I got a bit carried away. Apologies for that. There'll be timestamps to skip through this. And yeah, but just a bit of a catalogue video looking at all of the weapons at their current finished phase. So let's go through this. Alright, let's start this catalogue video off then by looking at the dies on the warrior weapon. Personally, I think the warrior axe is probably my favourite out of the entirety of this particular stage. It'll be really interesting to see where they go with glowiness in the next stage in the 7.3 series, where they're going to be upgrading. Presumably we're going to get a glowy version. There are not many glows from a lot of the weapons, but for some reason the axe got the majority of the glow. It's got this kind of really cool resonating heartbeat, as you can see, with a particular color. And the best thing about that is you can change the color of that heartbeat, as well as the second palette as well. So you've got that metal changing to one color. It looks really good in blues. That green looks amazing, and it's almost like a fell color with the neon green. I frankly do think this is one of the cooler warrior weapons in the game. It's definitely one of the more interesting out of this relic set. There's quite a few of these relics that I'm kind of like, we'll have to wait until the later stages before this gets cool, but I think the warrior weapon's big, It's burly. It looks pretty badass. It looks like the sort of thing an orc would pick up and smash someone in the face with, you know what I mean? We've got the chains across there, the metal supporting this, what looks like, you know, some kind of precious rock or mineral. It looks pretty hefty. It looks like if you smash someone in the face, it would hurt. So yeah, I think the warrior weapon, definitely one of my favorites from this set. And I think if I was to choose just one out of the entire set, I would probably go for this. But yeah, let's move on and look at the other tanks. Right, so second on our list then of the tanks is Dark Knight, and Dark Knight gets this really interesting berserker style sword. It kind of makes me wish that we had a two-handed melee like DPS in the game. I mean, it would be so cool if we did one day. This is the sort of weapon you would want to wield. It looks pretty good actually in a variety of colors. Probably less good dyes than they could be. It's a very dark texture that's actually on this weapon. I do like the fact that the runes are slightly glowy and you can change the color of that. More weapons that have dyeable glows on them, the better. Another thing we looked at with the 7.3 patch notes is supposedly the elemental weapons from Eureka Hydartos are supposed to be getting double dyes. So does that mean that we'll be able to change the glow on those? If so, those will be amazing. But I do like this. This is a good first step for the Dark Knight weapon. You can kind of see where they're going to go with this. Like, obviously, you could have some, you know, Dark Knight red and black sort of flowing energy from this as it evolves later on, presumably. It's a cool looking weapon. I do like it in neon green. I've said that probably about quite a couple of weapons, honestly, as I've got them. But yeah, it's nice. I just wish that the texture was a little bit lighter as a base so that the colors actually applied to it in a, you know, easier to match way. Because when you start dyeing things on armor, matching to a weapon usually relies on not just it being the same color, but also the same kind of texture as well. Otherwise, you know, the drastic changes between, you know, metallic purple on something that's brighter as a base to something that is as dull as this is quite drastic. Really cool weapon, though. I don't think it's necessarily the coolest out of all of these at its sort of base first level, but they could have done a lot worse. But yeah, as I see this, probably we're going to end up with big red glowy things. Maybe they'll try and do some crystalline things. I have no idea. Moving on to, I think this is pretty much a favorite of a lot of people I've talked to. They love a good sword and shield, and this sword in particular is absolutely beautiful. And the shield's not bad either. Let's do a die preview. Managed to get Fran involved here so we could do back-to-back. So you could see both the shield and the sword. The sword, I think, is probably the coolest thing out of this. The shield, unfortunately, at least in my opinion, doesn't have a very good dye palette, simply because the secondary dye palette, as you can see, it's kind of, you're forcing yourself to always have a color, right? You've got that glowy bit in the middle, that's nice, and then you've got the inlay, but you're always going to end up with a white shield, you know what I mean? Like the white metal, which is a bit disappointing, and it can clash quite drastically with a variety of colors you choose. So you're going to need something with that white and then the other colors on your armor as well to match properly to it. Doesn't look too bad though. I do think the sword is the true hero of this though, especially in neon yellow or neon green. That is absolutely gorgeous. Looking great actually, even in neon pink and white. Absolutely beautiful. I think they've done a decent job. Again, like the sword seems to glow more than a lot of the other weapons you're going to see in this video, which is really surprising. But it'll be interesting to see what direction they go with the phantom weapons, if they add a glowy stage as the next stage, or if it's going to completely change, or, you know, I'm curious. This is a good base though. A lot of these weapons are a good base, some better than others. Like I'm a sucker for a good glowy weapon, so having a glow at this early stage is really nice. It's not too flamboyant, but I do like the pulsating sort of energy in a lot of the weapons, especially the shield here. Yeah, really, really happy with that. Not a massive fan of the shield though because of the white section. The sword dies a lot better than the shield, but unfortunately that's just you know, a symptom of how the die system works in this game. Let's move on then, and we're going to move straight to Gunbreaker, which is personally my least favorite of the tanks, but I can see a lot of people who enjoy a good Gunbreaker weapon. These Gunblades then, it's going to be, you know, up to you if you like this. The first sort of split between the dies is you've got the handle, and then you've got the blade separate completely. So you've got a big handle section, which is a completely different texture, and then we've got the blade as well. It looks kind of futuristic, this weapon. It's not the sort of gun blade that, you know, I would personally want. I'm a huge fan of Final Fantasy VIII. As you guys know, it's my favorite Final Fantasy game. I don't know. You know, the thing I don't like about this, the angled up blade towards the midpoint at the end. I know they've probably lent that up because of where the, you know, the bullet, quote unquote, would come out at the bottom, at the front, but it just feels like it's too tilted. Maybe this just isn't my cup of tea. I can see this working with, like, again, with neon green, neon yellow, with some like Solution 9 sort of armor. Pretty futuristic, just not my personal cup of tea. I do like the chains though. A lot of these weapons have chains on them, which I'm not sure if that's something we should look into in terms of a lore thing. Like maybe the chains break as we evolve these. We seem to be, you know, the power seems to be chained down, so to speak. But yeah, this weapon, unfortunately, again, like we said, the disparity between having a glow and not having a glow, and this one really doesn't have a glow. So yeah, some weapons, you know, they're not all made equal. It's not a bad weapon. I've seen a lot worse, and there are much worse gunblades in the game, in my opinion. Moving on then to our healers, since we've dealt with our tanks, starting off with White Mage and starting off strong. I absolutely love the Phantom Cane. I think it is absolutely gorgeous. It is a completely different direction, and everybody who saw that original weapon design contest where the Black Mage got the lantern on a stick, which was absolutely exceptional, by the way. I forget the name of the artist who submitted it, but either way, they did a fantastic job, and we have an amazing Black Mage weapon in the game because of that. I love the idea of a lantern on the edge of a pole, and I was so bummed at the time because I used to play White Mage quite often in my raid group that I would not have access to the lantern. So having it finally in a different kind of form, this floral pattern, it's not bad, is it? It looks better in a lot of... I think it looks good in red and white, personally. Obviously, you've got the petals up the actual staff itself with the vines, and at the top the petals sort of spread out, and we've got that heart piece, but you always have that heart piece within the lantern, so, and it's always flowing with pink energy, right? So that's something that you have to take into consideration when you're making a glamour. Is, yeah, it looked cool, but just remember there's that pink there. So you've got to A, like pink, and B, like hearts in a jar, essentially. It would have been cool if it was just a normal flame or something, but I suppose it wouldn't have been as cool or as unique. But I think it looks really nice. It's definitely one of the cooler White Mage canes that I've seen added to the game in at least... I'm trying to think of Dawntrail, like what weapons I'd rather have from Dawntrail alone for a White Mage. Honestly, there's not that many. I think this is the first one I've gone, that looks really cool. Aside from, you know, ultimate weapons and things like that. But yeah, I think this is one of the cooler ones they've added. Again, in terms of evolution on this, maybe the heart motif becomes a bigger element of this as it gets upgraded. You know, in terms of a glow, I don't know. I've really no idea. I do like the designs though. There's like tiny intricate designs on the actual staff itself next to the vines, but it looks really good in red and white. I think that looks really good. I'm wearing the Cloud Dark stuff here just as an example, and I think it matches perfectly. Moving on to another one of our healers then with Sage. I love Sage. I think it's fantastic. And Sage gets rockets. I mean, what's not to love? It kind of feels to me like everything else has been super serious, and they were like, what can we do for Sage? Let's just give them frickin' rockets, man. I like that. That's really cool. And the designs look good in different colors. As you can see, the metallic cobalt green is one of my favorite colors they've ever added to the game, but it looks really good. You've got kind of like firework rocket sort of motif if you go for certain colors, and then you've got more serious kind of like, you know, like this is a nuclear warhead kind of look. Very cool. Almost sort of 50s sci-fi. I can imagine a lot of people using these. I can also imagine a lot of people glamoring away from them, because I think that they're a little bit less serious in tone, but it's nice to have, you know, lots of new designs that aren't necessarily something that you would expect. Everything looks good in Carmine Red and Jet Black, by the way, like everything. Like there isn't a single thing in the game that doesn't benefit from it. I think they're cool. Obviously designed after some kind of rocket ship or rocket. I'm not sure what the actual basis of this is, what the base of the, you know, what they based it on, but it looks really cool, and I have absolutely no idea what they will do in terms of the evolution of this weapon. I would like to see more like bigger rockets or like more fins on them. Obviously glows. For a glow, you could just have every time you cast a spell, it'd be cool if like it ignited, so you could see some like projection out the back of the rocket. I know that's probably not ever gonna happen, but it'd be cool if it was like a fuse being lit sort of effect. But yeah, you could have fire coming out the back of them, I suppose. That would be cool. But yeah, they look pretty cool. They're definitely very different from what we've seen, and I think a lot of weapons, unfortunately, tend to stick to familiarity, and in this case, I think Scholar is a perfect example of that, unfortunately. Not a massive fan of this one. That kind of like slide rule ruler thing folds out to where it currently is and folds in when you sheath the book. I don't like this book at all. I think that the sort of nautical-esque theme is cool, but the book itself, like the actual leather book, it's kind of uninspired, seems a bit basic. And as you can see with the dyes here, I mean, metallic yellow, canary yellow, that sort of stuff brings out that leather, but the fact that the second dye palette is the feather rather than the leather itself on the book, I don't know. I don't know if I like that at all. It just looks very basic, especially when we'll get to casters later. And Summoner just has such a cool motif going for it. And then Scholar's like, well, guess I'm gonna glamour this away. In terms of development in like future stages, I think what they should do is probably ditch the leather book idea and go a little bit crazy with that kind of, you know, space theme, if that's where they're going with it, like almost nautical theme with the charts and things. Make some bits spin, maybe. It's just like a significant lack of animation on this, whereas the Summoner one, a bit of a spoiler if you haven't seen it later in the video, has a frickin' bat that's flapping around, which is really cool, I think, in comparison. I suppose it's, you know, different tastes, but this certainly isn't my taste. I think it's a lot worse than many other relic weapons in the game. You could do better, and it kind of reminds me of the Resistance weapon a little bit. Kind of meh. Moving on to something that isn't as meh, I think the Astro weapon's quite nice. This is the globe then, looking pretty good. The dye ability on this is, it's so-so. Obviously, you've got that white section that isn't really changing color, but that's not a bad color to have on there as a default. With the metal changing color, it has this nice metallic shine no matter what color you go for. And then the interior sort of vial thing that's spinning changes color and has a nice glow to it. In terms of development for this, it kind of gives me sort of Greek vibes, or maybe even Asian vibes. There's a bit of Amarot in there, I think, sort of stained glass kind of thing going on, at least in my opinion. It'd be cool to see where they go with that, but it kind of looks like something you would see in Amarot, like as a tool, if the cards weren't flitting around, of course, floating around. It's certainly not one of the worst. It's one of the better looking Astro globes I've seen in a very long time, personally. The colors seem to go with it nicely as well. I think brighter colors seem to work better, really makes that the white pop out as well from the undyeable section, and the metallic sort of texture makes a lot of the colors quite dark. Like that yellow there, that looks beautiful. The green looks pretty good. Yeah, in terms of development, man, where would I go with this? Probably extenuate it a little bit more, make the spikes more, like have Art Deco kind of curves to this, maybe things sticking out. You know, for considering this is the first stage of a weapon, I do really like this. I like quite a lot of these. There's just a few examples that I'm not a fan of, but the Astro one's really nice. Moving on to Bard then, and I don't know, this one's gonna be a toss-up, isn't it? Do you like this style of harp bow? Harp bows used to be every single bow was a harp bow. They've kind of strayed away from that a little bit. I think that this is a little bit basic. I kind of don't like the fact that the only glowy bit's the gemstone. I don't like the base wood being black permanently, with like the metal being the dyeable bit, and then the secondary dye being that tiny little mini section with the stars in the middle. It's kind of, I like a good harp bow, but this is not as good. But it is the base of something that could be cool. I think personally I would want them to go a completely different direction, maybe evolve this completely. Like the front section's cool with that kind of almost angelic wings thing going on, where the arrow is sort of resting on there and floating. Maybe they could make that more of a design, make it sort of more regal, I guess, like go with feathers and things like that. It just, I don't know. I don't know if it's based on anything. Like I say, maybe this is a design based on something. But there's a lot to go with this weapon. I think it looks more basic than, for example, the Paladin weapon or even the Astro weapon. I think, yeah, I would like to see some significant changes in the future. I think the dye ability kind of sucks as well. I think the second dye palette should have affected the base wood color, because unless you like that black wood, you're probably not going to pick this one up. But it's not terrible. Some of the resistance weapons on their base stage looked that bad, and they turned out to be okay. Machinist then, unfortunately, still suffering from the problem of having the ether pack undyeable. I still think they should make that a dyeable section, and I will keep rallying in videos and complaining when possible that the ether pack can't be changed in color, or at least visibility. There should be a toggle. The gun again has the same issues as the Bard bow. Like, unless you want that metallic black, rifling area where it kind of looks like a quad shotgun. There's four different cylinders essentially attached. Unless you want that black background on that metal, then it's probably not going to be for you. The dyes don't seem to dye the main part of it. I think the black would be the most important part. Like the secondary details are like the outline design, like the metal bit, as you can see. And then I don't know. It's a cool looking weapon though, don't get me wrong. Like, it's cool. A quad shotgun, basically. I think it's a cool design. You can imagine actually firing this thing and it'd be an absolute blast. But, I don't know. Customization is everything. For me personally, nothing's really got better than the Heavensward relic for Machinist. But you might disagree. We'll see. We'll see how this evolves. It could be completely different in the future. I would like to see the actual barrel change, though. Make it so that we can actually dye that or something. But it's not terrible. But again, the biggest problem I have with Machinist is the ether pack rather than the gun. Now, we're moving on to Dancer. Now, Dancer might be joint first place for me in terms of love. If it wasn't for the fact that there's a certain color here that we can't get rid of. The double dyes on this is quite nice. You've got that inner gem that's sort of glowing. It's subtle. There's some subtle little designs there. And then the first dye is really nice, actually. I don't mind having the silver permanently silver on the tips, on the lower tip there. The thing that really surprises me is that they have this sort of splash of pink / purple on the blade itself that you can't really remove. It's like someone's got a spray can and then accidentally gone over their template and sprayed over the masking tape onto the blade. Aside from that, if you can make that purple work, which, I mean, I personally, like you can see, have a glamour that's gold and purple, it matches perfectly. I love the colors, though, that you can dye this. I think they're exceptional to have that kind of fan blade as opposed to just another chakram. I think a lot of people like these, and if you haven't seen these yet, you're probably going to put this near the top of your list. It's just that pink bit. That's the only thing that puts me off slightly. If not, this would probably be my favorite of the sets from the first stage of this relic. But yeah, I don't know. It sets it back a bit. In terms of advancement then, where would I like to see this weapon developed? Get rid of the pink bit, maybe even bigger blades, maybe more blades, and a bigger, like a larger dyeable second part would be nice as well, rather than the gemstones, or make the gemstones have some kind of crazy glow or something. Moving on from that then to something that I really don't like at all. This is the Black Mage cane, and yeah, it's not my cup of tea. You might be looking at this and going, it's really nice, I love it. With the bandage wrapped around the middle of the cane where you're holding it, the cracks in the wood. I mean, it's an artistic style. It reminds me of something that would be more natural than anything. It's like you've just literally pulled a branch off of a tree or something. It's got this weird glowing with runes meteorite stuck in the top, which I suppose is like the coolest part of it. It's got a kind of heartbeat resonating glow, and you can change the color of that. I think the second dye palette could have been applied more to the cane, at least somewhere, maybe on the dirty rag we're holding and wrapped around it. But it's not a terrible weapon. I just, comparatively to the rest, this is just not flashy at all. But it could also have the biggest glow up when they do the later stages of this. Like, you could take this concept and go crazy with it. Yeah, it's kind of like Gandalf's staff if it had a bandage wrapped around it and a runic D20 stuck in the top of it. It's not terrible, but it just looks out of place amongst the other weapons. So I think this will probably have the biggest glow up of all of them, because it's the most, not the most uninspired. It looks the most basic at this point. It looks like a really basic staff. Like if you walked past somebody with this as a newcomer to the game in New Gridania and you were like level 10, you saw a guy wearing that, you'd be like, that must be just a low-level weapon then. You wouldn't think it was anything crazy. Moving on to something that really is quite lovely. I think this is a great book. Comparatively to the Scholar book, this is absolutely how you should do books, in my opinion. Full of detail, full of some really interesting ideas. This big old bat that reminds me of Ozzy Osbourne. Rest in peace, by the way. Really sad about that, by the way, personally. But big floating bat that's flapping around that changes color depending on your dye choice. The only thing I dislike is obviously the palette choice here, not affecting that inlaid metal. Like the silver doesn't change color. But it's also not a bad base color. I kind of like the one open eye and then the one closed eye. Very, very spoopy. And then we've got the crescent moon on the side, sort of dangling with different sort of jewelry. And then the glow is kind of emanating through the jewelry and the top of that spike on the side of a book. There's not really that much that I dislike about it apart from that silver section. And the reason is because it looks different. It's not just a book. The way that they could adapt this and develop it, make the bat a bigger feature, I guess, make spikes come out of it, I don't know, make the eyes a bigger feature, having like these big all-seeing eyes sort of opening, that ominous kind of almost Cthulhu stuff. Yeah, definitely go that direction, make it a really ominous, dark, evil book or something. But it's not a bad design. But it immediately, if you compare it to the Scholar book side by side, you're like, wow, Scholar's got a little bit shafted. Look at that animation on that bat. That's really, really, really nice. It looks good in a variety of colors as well. Moving on then to Red Mage, another one of my favorites here actually from this set. I think I'd probably put this third or fourth. There are obviously some things I would definitely change about this, like the main blade color. It's just silver, and it's like a pitted silver. It's not too bad though. I mean, you know, that's the color it is. That's the color it is. I like the resonating floating crystal with a change with a double die where you have the metallic shroud around it and then the gemstone. I think that the coil motif just above, like near the hilt, that's really nice actually, that kind of detail there. It's just a really nice sword. I think they're probably gonna develop this in the future. Hopefully they do more of a spiral motif, maybe put that up the entire blade, maybe make the hilt bigger, spikier or something. It definitely looks like a lost treasure to me, like if that's what we're going for with the occult crescent. I don't know, you know, the phantom weapons, I'm not really sure what direction they're going with, but it looks like the sort of thing that would be a fabled relic of old, you know what I mean? Like you'd pick it up out of a chest. Looks really good in brass. Really, really good. Yeah, I like this one. You might dislike it. Again, the biggest downfall for me is that blade. But there's lots of dyeable blades in the game. Silver's not the worst color. You could have it. I'm used to having big pokey glowy bits. But again, that can be changed as this thing levels up through the next stages. So, it looks kind of basic for now, but there's a lot of really lovely detail that's got some really good dye options. I wish the gemstone was bigger on the hilt though, and I also wish the back gemstone on the base, you know, the pommel, that's what the word I was looking for. Wish that was changeable. And then we moved from something I really like to something that I kind of don't like at all. I think that this is just not very good, in my opinion. You might love this. I'm not a big flowery sort of person, personally. It reminds me of like a hairbrush, like that wooden section in the middle down to bottom, just below her hand that's holding the actual paintbrush itself. The flower pattern, it reminds me of like some 1960s love fest kind of thing going on there. Not a fan of that. The brush itself has some decent dye ability, but it's not a full dyed palette. And there's so many other colors on that brush. Like it looks like I've just put my hand into a bag of, you know, hard candy and pulled out 4 different types of candy, like a raspberry one, an orange one, you know, a mint one. And then you've got that weird like metallic section. The dye palette is the brush head and the wood section, and on the palette it's the inner of a palette and then the outer of a palette. I think the palette's actually nicer to me than the actual brush. I wish we could mix and match palettes with brushes from different sets. That would be cool, but again, almost, you know, impossible, right, with this sort of technology. I don't know if they could code that. Yeah, I really can't stand this brush. I think it's one of the worst brushes we've had in Dawntrail, and I'm a Picto main. Like, I love playing my Pictomancer, and I will not be using this at all. There are so many brushes. Well, actually, there aren't that many brushes in the game, but there are so many better looking ones. Almost anything I think I'd choose. Moving on then from uninspiring, at least in my opinion, to something that I think they could do a lot more with, and that's Monk. As we go through these dye previews, there's so little on here that's changing color, right? We've got the sort of petal-esque flower thing, a pad, and then we've got the metal bit in the middle. It's kind of like runic, and that's basically it. But the actual design, again, it's a first stage, so maybe it'll look better later. There are not many monk weapons in this game that I like, if I'm perfectly honest with you. It's just, they're always small. A lot of them just seem rather simple. Aside from like your last stage relics and things like that, again, going back to like Heavensward and things like that, they never look that great until they've leveled up. There's lots of potential, maybe, like the metal spiky bits. I guess they could develop the rest of this to be like that. You see, I'm a massive fan of fist weapons that actually have weapons on them, right? Like hand-to-hand fighting doesn't really interest me anyway, so I'm probably not the clientele for playing a monk, you know, aesthetically, but I like the Vega claws, you know what I mean, from Street Fighter. I like, you know, spiky bits, you know, having something like kettles, even the kettles, you know, something physical that you're holding in your hand as part of that fist, like knuckle dusters, that kind of thing. It just kind of looks to me like you've got a flower on your wrist, like you're going to punch me in the face with a slightly different colored flower, and then you've got the spiky bits that are cooler further back. Again, first stage, we can't really judge too much, but they've got a long way to go. Dragoon surprised me, actually. I wasn't a massive fan of this weapon when I first got it, but it's growing on me. It's quite simple. Again, all of these are supposedly simple, being a first stage, although, you know, Summoner's got an incredible looking book as a first stage. The dye ability is not bad on this. Nice straight colors. I do like the ribbon connected with chains. Again, chains seem to be a motif with this, but it's flowing through the majority of the weapons, apart from Pictomancer, which is weirdly 60s. But yeah, it looks really good. It looks basic, but it's a nice basic design that you can build on. Like, you can make that more spiky. You can incorporate some intricate designs. And I think that's the one thing that's missing off of this, is probably more of that runic design that they've got a little touch of here, that they seem to have a lot more with Dark Knight and things like that. They could really play into that mysterious rune thing, but it looks really good. It's nice. It's appealing to the eye from a distance. There's not a lot of detail, but they could certainly go a little bit crazier, make it a little bit spikier. So I see this developing traditionally how Dragoon weapons usually do. They start off basic, you know, poles with a pointy bit, and then they get lots more pointy bits as we go. Massive fan of Dragoon. I'm absolutely loving Dragoon in PvP, and I hope we see some improvements that make people happy. As for like a glow, there's not really anything here. So obviously that's something that they're missing comparatively to other weapons in this relic stage. So I think that'll probably be the first thing they get, hopefully. Yeah, it'd be cool to have some more intricate detail on this, but it does look really good as a basic weapon. Not even remotely sad about this one. Moving on then to Ninja, and we've got curved swords. Curved swords are always a you know, fan favorite. They look pretty cool. These kind of like scimitar things, they look really nice, actually. They look deadly. The only thing I don't like about these is, again, the blade on the outside being that polished, well, pitted polished silver. I kind of like the second dye palette being on the interior and also on the fabric. It's not a bad looking weapon, and there are some good combinations of colors that you can get away with. I do think the inlay, like the metal inlay that's part of the main dye palette just before the secondary dye palette on the middle of each sword, could be a little bit thinner so that we got more of that inner color popping out. But if you're after subtle color changes, if you're trying to match to gear, this could be really nice, actually. Really nice. And it just looks exceptional in bright colors. Darker colors, not a massive fan of that, since we already have black and silver on now, / gray. But bright colors look really good on this, in my opinion. It's not the first time we've had curved swords by any stretch of the imagination, but I think these are really nice. They look like they could do some serious damage, and in motion they look pretty good. If you saw the start of this video, they look pretty nice. And in terms of like where I see these developing, I don't know, could you go even curvier? Is that possible? Maybe have like double blades. There was a weapon in this game, I forget the name of it. It's a ninja weapon that has two blades side by side that are going the same direction. So instead of just there being one blade per blade, there was two. I forget the name of it, but it's one of my favorite designs they've done. So maybe they could just like double it up. I think that would make people happy. Then we're moving on to Samurai, which at first you might think is quite basic, but look at that scabbard. It's absolutely gorgeous. I remember when I first saw this, I was like, whoa, the scabbard is so much nicer than the blade. The blade's interesting because it's got this kind of two-tone thing going on. You can't change that second tone on the actual blade. It's, you know, that one dye and then silver, which is fine. and then you've got the actual hilt, and then the grip, which is the secondary dye palette. I do think the scabbard looks better than the blade, though. Like, if they could have the sword have some of the detail from the scabbard, like in future stages, that would be awesome. It looks really good, though. Like, I have not many complaints about this. Again, there's not really a glow going on here, which I'm sure will be fixed by future stages. There isn't a lot of intricate design on the actual blade, but the scabbard just has this, like, almost oriental dragon thing going on here, like the sort of thing you would expect, like mythical weapon. So yeah, I think they've definitely answered their brief if they were going for lost relics, you know, lost to time on a mysterious island and recreated from us, so to speak. I don't know if that's where they're going with it, although that doesn't explain the Pictomancer brush, does it, with the 60s stuff. But yeah, it's a cool weapon. It looks good in a variety of colors if you don't mind the silver bit. There are plenty of samurai swords in this game, such as the Gordian blade, etc., that where you can fully dye the weapon and it has a really nice base glow to it, almost like a lightsaber. But I think they're going for a really nice look this time, and I think if they bring across some of the design aspects from the scabbard into the blade for the next stages, it could be a serious winner. Moving on to Reaper, then we've got ourselves a quite nice blade. Actually got nice simple intricate designs. Well, I shouldn't call them simple, actually. There's a lot going on, but the colors are nice because you've got that base black. Now, I'm not really a fan usually of like having a base color and so much of the surface area not being dyeable, but I think the choice here has actually made for some really nice combinations. Like the yellow and gold with the black is exceptional. Look at that gunmetal black there, metallic silver pearl white looks incredible, brass and pastel pink even. It just brings out so much more of that color. So I think they made a good choice with this one, making it black, and it's Reaper, so you know, that makes perfect sense. Neon green, neon yellow kind of reminds me of something from World of Warcraft, like Fell Energy. It's a really nice looking weapon. Like, I can't really find too many things to complain about with this. Beautiful design. If they could just put like 20% of the intricate designs that are on this onto some of the other weapons. Like, for example, if you got a scholar book and you put some of this design work onto that, it would be 10 times better, that scholar book. But yeah, I think the Reaper blade is really nice, and I can imagine they're going to go pretty crazy. Reaper is one of their little favorites of making some of the weapons really cool, especially how they fold out as well. But I'm sure they'll make more of that eye motif that they've got somewhere on the weapon, maybe more spikes, and maybe more chains. Actually, the chains seem to be a real big focus on this. And then lastly but not least, we've got Viper, which may look like a really basic weapon, but I appreciate that immensely because this is a good base and it dies well. We've got some good palettes here. The midsection, as you can see, I just joined the weapons together with an ability so that we could see it in one shot rather than trying to do two camera shots of each blade separate. So I hope you appreciate the fact that this was the better option to fill it in the screen. It looks good though. The dye options are really nice. There's not a lot of intricate detail on this. Again, like, they could have taken some of the runic design from the Dark Knight weapon, or even the Reaper weapon, or even the Summoner stuff, implemented that across the blade. It'd be nice if there were runes that glowed across each blade or something, but I'm sure that's something that will happen. Yeah, there's not a lot going on here, but it's a good base. But it's not the most like wow weapon, you know. If you saw somebody with this, you'd think it's probably like one of the weapons you'd get from the quest. So if you're after subtlety, it's quite good in that regard. But it certainly doesn't look bad. There's not many bad Viper weapons in this game, if I'm honest with you. There's only a couple that I don't like, but I'm not going to mention them because I'm sure people would be like, that's my favorite weapon. But yeah, a lot of these weapons are really cool, and I hope you appreciated the video. It took me a while to do. Getting all of the dyes, all of the camera shots, and editing this was a nightmare. But I enjoyed it, and that's the purpose of making videos. Thank you so much for your support. With me back now from being pretty much, I'm pretty much finished with my recovery. I've still got aches and pains, but you know, I'm happy to be sat down for long periods of time, just in time for the patch. So hopefully we can do this again with the next stage of these weapons, but again, you got to get them first. It took me a very long time to get these weapons, mostly because I really detest tombstones as a stage. I think, quite frankly, it's crap, and I prefer a nice variety of things. I was really happy with the Atma. I know that a lot of people were not, but the tombstone stage was just so unnecessary again, and my biggest fear is that they're going to do it again with the next patch update. But we'll see, right? Fingers crossed that we get something exciting, and hopefully we can get some cool enhancements to some of these weapons. Let me know what you think about them, and which your favorite is, if you've got any of these yet, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.